Yeah, I'll never get over how cringy that is, but I just got to keep doing it. It's fun. So winning fist bumps. And today
Speaking of cringe,
well, I wanted to say we got rid of our stale co-host. It was getting a little stale, so don't tell him I said that. But we've got a guest today, Ricky Bobby. He's joined us. So thank you for joining us, Ricky. Introduce yourself, and for those that don't know Ricky.
oh, I didn't know you were doing that. That's kind of funny. I would have watched the movie and tried to get the
I
voice
know
down,
I'm
but
just messing.
hey, all I got is if you aren't first, you're last.
Definitely, definitely. So,
Yeah,
Brandon, I wanted to spend a moment to start this show because there's a little impromptu, but I know that you can handle it. Every
bring it
week,
on.
you're talking with other guests, whether it's here or on your other show. You get to know them, their background, kind of their origin story. But I don't feel that you get to tell it enough. And I've told you this, I think, multiple times. I keep trying to like prod you to talk about your past, your successes,
Yeah.
because you've got some great ones. Some ones that I've learned from, some ones that have been, life changing for you and for your family. So I
Hmm.
think it'd be cool to, if you're okay with it, just to spend a minute to talking about your background and kind of the things that you've learned.
Yeah, and thanks, Daniel, and for sure, like, and how it pertains to where we are, because
Sure.
when I look at my 27 year career, um, it wasn't intentional at the beginning, but really my career has followed the same model, and it's been true to my personal mission statement, which is I build companies to help CEOs or business owners and sales reps. Sales reps for me are like little micro business owners. I build companies to help them create more revenue and take stress off their plate so they could go home with more peace. And that's been really important to me because I know what it was like to be a kid in a home with a business owner who didn't have peace and some of the chaos that it caused and all of that. So that's been my personal mission. My first company, I was a minority shareholder. I had 5%, two guys that were, I don't know, maybe they were like 5 years older than me or something. But I came in, I knew nothing, but I got into this space where I realized we were playing with content, and I didn't call it content back then.
Hmm.
We had a magazine that we called Healthy Pet, and we created variable information from an individual veterinary clinic with a message on the front of the cover to say Daniel,
Hmm.
and it would say, "Hey Daniel, Sparky's due for a shot. It's time to give us a call and get your vaccination." But that was where we just started scratching the surface around variable data. But what I learned in that, and has carried me through all these years, is the power of content, but it can't be stale content. It can't just be brand content. When individuals are talking to other people, it has to be personalized. And back in the 90s, we were able to do some variable stuff that would have like the person's name or the dog's name. But as technology grew and I pushed technology, we got into my other companies, we started really realizing that how do we empower people at scale to have the right message in their voice, in their style. And here's the key, without requiring every person on the team to write their own content or create
It's
their own
huge
content.
for sure.
And that's been the common theme throughout my entire career.
That's really
Um,
cool. And
yeah.
I wanted to add in, I know we've got people that are tying in. Anyone that has questions, whether it's regarding Brandon and this, but also as we're going through the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. So please do that.
Mark Clausen, thanks for
Uh,
jumping in. I love Mark. I
yes,
learned so much from him.
it, he's always got some good comments for us.
Yeah.
I had a note here because I remember you telling me about a CRM that you built. So basically, you were like Mark Benioff before Mark Benioff, and I think it speaks to the fact that there's so many possibilities in companies, and I think you
Yeah.
see a lot of potentials and trends.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I left the biggest potential asset in my by design company when I sold it. I didn't know at the time. The biggest asset I had was the CRM system that we built. We called it a CMS. It was our client management system. But what we built was a web-based tool that our
Mhm.
salespeople could log into, our customer success could log into, our production team could log into, and we managed and tracked everything from the beginning to end of our customer experience.
Mhm.
We had callbacks, we had buttons in there for notes, like when we were on the phones calling people, and then we'd go to write a note. We're like, gosh, it'd be really nice if we just had a button that said left voice message and automatically set the callback for 4 days. And so
Mhm.
we created a button. Like, I mean, it was a nice thing we had a tech team in house.
Sure.
And we were building technology to help our customers, and we were building technology to help our team. And everything was designed around how do we get the best out of people without losing their humanity?
Sure.
Like, how do we help them be more efficient and better at who they are, but not lose the humanity of the person? And that's been my driving belief with technology. I
Mhm.
got a little lost there for a little bit, to be honest, where I started using more automation stuff. And because it was kind of the trend, and I
Sure.
realized, like, wait a minute, this isn't what I'm really about.
Mhm.
And we started to pull it back.
Right.
But yeah,
And it makes things easier. I mean, automation is always a temptation because it makes things easier, and it takes away the need to put in all this tedious work, but sometimes it also with it takes away that humanity. So I can
yeah,
see why that would be a danger. Okay, so and one little thing before we get back into the AI and kind of what we're doing, but you've had these successes, and I want to say that like 2 out of 3 or whatever is real, or 3 out of 4. I don't know exactly what your numbers are. Is really really good in starting
yeah.
things, and this last one has had some difficult. Not this last one we're doing now, but before had some difficulty. So would
Mhm.
you say you learn more from the successes or the failures? That's my last like
You know,
dig
it's
into branded question.
yeah, and I know the right answer in some ways is supposed to be you learn more from the challenges.
Hmm.
I don't I don't fully agree with that though. You learn different things.
Okay.
I've learned a lot in the successes, and I learned a lot of different things in the failures and challenges. So I've had 3 exits of companies that I've started. I had one pretty significant company that we didn't make it, we shut down. And then, as you said, we have a company right now that it's okay. It's
Hmm.
not doing
Yeah.
phenomenal. I wouldn't call it a success, but it's not a failure.
Sure.
But it's not where I would want it to be so that I would say, hey, successful. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think you mentioned even many times along the way, because we've been working together, what, 7 years? And I think at least once in every one of those 7 years, I've heard you say the term, I think we might be early. And
hmm,
it's possible that that was the case. I mean, some of the
yeah,
things we were doing was a little bit, I don't want to toot your horn or our horns, but we were a little ahead of our time in that. And
yeah,
it didn't strike well from a product market fit, but we're learning
yeah,
from that. And we're definitely bringing that to this new company.
yeah. And that, I mean, and that's why the Ricky Bobby
Sure.
hat today
Yeah.
of, I think the expression "if you aren't first, you're last" is
That's what I wanted
funny.
to go into next. Yeah.
It is funny. And hey, Bob Breton, thanks for joining us. And it's
Our AI voice has come. We're glad
That's
to have
right.
you here to talk about how great AI is, Bob. Thanks.
And yeah, I think with AI, we got to walk this really, really fine, tight, careful, cautious, any other adjective I can throw in there,
Sure.
line, because I do believe that if we look at transformational technology like cloud, I mean, the real big ones were internet and cloud for me,
Hmm.
right? The internet, and we leveraged the internet in ways in the late 90s that we couldn't have done without it. Like, we transferred information from clients in real time. That was
Yeah.
incredible because prior to that we were relying on FedEx. The fastest thing was FedEx to get the type of content we needed, and I had fax machines. But and then with cloud, I believe there was a lot of companies in internet and cloud that they were slow adopters,
Sure.
totally understandable, and it didn't hurt them that bad,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe they lost out on some profits they could have had. They could have lost out on some savings they could have had. Maybe they could have got into markets a little bit earlier, but overall, it didn't really hurt them.
Sure.
I think now with AI, it's going to be a much bigger risk for companies that aren't taking it serious. because the power behind it and what it can do to empower individuals on a team. And if you empower enough individuals that are doing things that much faster and that much more refined and better and sharp and focused on messaging, I mean, from generative AI perspective anyway,
Mhm.
I think it's got potential to really hurt competitors.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it's interesting from the fact that Chris Walker posted yesterday, and he's a little bit anti AI, but I think it's interesting that he said he feels it's overhyped, which we might have some people here that agree with that it's overhyped.
Mhm.
But then he said, sure, it could replace these tasks, and then he said, maybe a $50,000 a year employee could replace it, but what's that in the grand scheme of things? And the thing is, he's talking to companies with 20 million plus ARR, and
Mhm.
so yeah, $50,000 a year employee might not be a huge hit if you're making that sort of money, but if you're SMB, if you can hyperdrive a $50,000 a year employee or replace one, like
Mhm.
what kind of value is that? And that's still his opinion, obviously, what he's basing it on. But I think when he even said that it's overhyped in some ways,
Yep.
he admitted that there's big value in the fact that you could replace an employee. And I think that
Mhm.
says a lot for a smaller business where that would make a big impact.
Yeah, for
What do you think?
sure. For sure. I think, and I like, I'm trying to read Timothy Lynch's comment on there. But maybe we can come back to that. What Bob said,
Mhm.
we're not seeing people use it strategically, but
Sure.
very tactical. And I agree with that. And I think here's the reason why: is tactical is the easiest way to start. The challenge with it is that to go and use anything tactical right now is using it pretty generically. And the
Mhm.
case in point is for us with social post or say even for comments, a
Mhm.
lot of the AI driven content that's created for a social post or for comments right now is still really generic.
Yep.
And for the last several months, we could say, oh, that was created by AI, that was created by AI. And
Mhm.
so people that are creating these tools and people that are using these tools, they're focused on speed, but they're not focused on quality. And I think that that's going to hurt them. And I think that's why there's a lot of companies that aren't touching it because the quality's not there.
Mhm.
But we do need to focus on speed and quality simultaneously to really leverage generative AI at scale.
Sure. No, definitely agree with that. So what do we want to go into? I was thinking about the concept of the FOMO versus FOMO. You've been talking about that a little bit
Mm-hmm.
recently. So can you go into what those two things
Yeah.
mean for the techie nerds or the people that don't get it like me?
Yeah, absolutely. And Nora, would you mind throwing Timothy Lynch's comment on there because I think
Yeah.
that's a really good point that he says, and thank you for that, Timothy. Um, and I want to address FOMO from that
Okay.
perspective. So he says, in my opinion, having or getting AI into the platforms and tools has has a ton of eager technologies. Hey Nora, are you there to help us?
I can read it. Has a ton of eager technologists enabling it. But what investments, resources are people putting into getting their people ready for it?
Right.
So how are they preparing them for it? There we go.
Yeah. Thanks, Nora. Yeah, how are they? How are they? But what investments or what resources are they really put into it? And I think this speaks to FOMO versus FOMO. And this is what on my other show, Matt Dixon came on and talked about. And for people, if you haven't read the Jolt Effect, I highly recommend it. Either read it, listen to it, or at least watch our other show where Matt came on and talked about it. Because one of the big driving factors right now is people are not being driven by the fear of missing out. Leaders are really being driven right now on the fear of messing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from a data perspective, that makes sense. If you look at the bell curve of early adopters to the masses to late adopters or laggards, as they're called,
Mm-hmm.
that's always made sense. That's very logical. But I think right now, especially because there's been this huge tech push over, and let's say the last 8 years, we'll call it since 2015, but I know it's bigger than that. But if you look at like the Martech, which used to be the Martech 700 is now the Martech 5000, and it actually has way more than 5,000 companies on it. There's been this tech tool, the SaaS, revolution, if you will. And a lot of companies have been bitten. They've
Hmm.
bought into tech, they've got expensive licenses. People are not using it, they're not adopting it, and somebody has been getting their butt chewed, or the business leader is, feeling bad about the decisions they made. And so now we got this really transformational technology coming on.
Hmm.
And I think the fear of messing up is really, really good. It means people are going to be cautious. But I want to encourage companies, don't be so cautious that you're not taking this serious, because this is a big one.
Yeah, and on that fear of messing up, that is very, very real on many fronts. So just this week, maybe you guys heard about the fact that Sports Illustrated had been posting articles by that were AI generated. The author was actually AI generated. The avatar they had found, or they created avatars for people, gave them fake backgrounds, and then started posting articles about sports written in AI, which if for any use case for rating AI generated content, like sports is pretty good for it, because it all kind
Mhm.
of talks the same way. It's based on facts that happened in the game. But if you said this is an AI summary, you're reading it as that. But when you're pulling the wool over the eyes of the users and saying this is a real person, here's that person. One, it does a disservice to your other authors that are real and are getting paid and are writing content, and then also you're lying to your users. And
Right.
so this marketing company that I can't remember the name, but this marketing, it doesn't matter, the marketing company that was being used by Sports Illustrated was making these articles, and then it got found out, which you would think, like, how stupid can you be? You're putting it out in the public, like eventually somebody's gonna be like, oh, this is interesting, what else has she written or he written, like, let's look where they went to school, like, oh, this person doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so the CEO lost his job. But supposedly they said that wasn't the reason, but it's like, weird timing just happened, then you lose your job. So
Yeah.
um, what I want to say is that's one way that fear of messing up is very real. And then
Hmm.
putting your data out there. So like, well,
Yeah.
if you build a GPT and let's say a GPT, if you know what that term is, but if you build some sort of AI as an internal tool, and then you also say, hey, let's make this an FAQ bot, and let's give this FAQ bot and put it on our website, then all of a sudden your FAQ bot has become your internal knowledge base bot that a customer could start asking questions again. So that's a
Yeah.
really big F up, but
Yeah,
that's just an
but
example of
explain
what
that.
could happen.
Explain the risk to it, right, Daniel?
Well, I
Because
mean,
I
you're
think there's a lot
uploading,
of people that don't understand what
yeah.
that
So,
risk is.
right. So if you're uploading your internal content to a knowledge base, to AI,
Proprietary content,
proprietary content,
systems,
yes,
customers, whatever.
and you think I'm going to upload it to this AI, and then I'll make this AI available to the customer, so the customer can ask questions about our services, pricing, whatever, getting insight on FAQs. And all of a sudden, somebody goes, "Oh, FAQs. Let me ask FAQs about their internal information, about proposals they've made to other customers."
Hmm.
And so now all of a sudden, you have ability to openly have espionage against your own company due to this AI that
Right.
you've created. So there is definitely potential of screwing up, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you just kind of jump into it head first with, like, this is what I need to do because everyone's telling me, and then you're all of a sudden opening up your
Mhm.
company for these risks.
Yeah.
Sorry
It,
for my rant.
no, it's good because I think there's two ways of looking at new technologies, and there's a couple of different ways. But let's break it down to these two easy ways. You can look at this AI thing and say, where can we be more efficient? I'm calling it the help the human be better and more efficient at the tasks that they should be doing, right? And then you have a look at where can it save us money,
Hmm.
right? Where can it save us time or money? And the time goes back to the being efficiency. So my background, everything that I like to talk about is around sales, marketing, demand creation, revenue creation. And the opportunity that's here, and of course I see this because my lens has always been this way in my whole work career. What I did back in the companies that you were asking about with like By Design and Digital Lizard is we were taking a look at how do we take corporate content and then personalize it for individual people to send it to their customer or their
Hmm.
prospective customer or their whatever. But how do we do that? Because if not, let's say you got 50 people on a team and you've got this content, and you go, okay, all 50 of you go and recreate this and send it to your people. Totally inefficient.
Sure.
One, they're going to go out of brand, they're going to make mistakes, they don't have time, and now you got 50 people. So let's just play numbers. You create a bunch of content, and like a brochure back in the day, that shows my gray hair. Right? You create a brochure and you give them to 50 people on your team and say, okay, go use these. What they could do efficiently was staple their business card to it. But if they wanted anything deeper, different, I need it for this customer, then they had to go bother marketing, or they created it themselves. So let's just say they go and create it themselves, or they go and bother marketing. Now you got 50 people going to marketing with 50 individual requests.
Sure.
Or you got 50 people, they all take an hour or two or a half day. I don't know. Let's say it's a half day. You got 50 people that are losing a half day of focused effort to do something that could be done for them at scale.
Yeah.
Now, that's the way I look at AI now, is how can we take brand content, brand messaging, and then provide it for everybody on the team who needs it in a way that is efficient for them, in a way that is targeted for them. So here's a piece of content, but when it goes to customer success team, it's got a tone or a spin or a focus to it. It goes to sales, it goes to leadership, it goes to ops, it goes to whoever
Sure.
on the team. And then instead of asking them, and this is what we did before with the other company, we say, well, now that it's pre-written for you, just rewrite it.
Yeah.
Rewrite it in your
Right.
own voice.
No one's going to do that. And they don't.
No.
They didn't.
And they don't. So then what happens is everybody shares the same piece of content. And when it comes to social, that's where you're looking at the news feed and you're like, oh, Daniel posted that. And then Brandon posted that. And then Nor posted that. Like everybody on the team posts the exact same post, the same picture, the same copy, word for word, verbatim. And it just makes you look bad.
Yeah. And that's the other fear. So we talked about fear of missing out, fear of messing up. And then on an individual user, it's fear of looking stupid, fear of looking lame.
Yeah.
And so you end up doing nothing. And that's what I did that a lot of times when I got those posts from the company. I was like, I'm not posting that on my social media because it's marketing speak. So I wasn't going to share it. But yeah, if I had that ability to say, let me rewrite it as me with very little effort, with push of a button, perhaps with a little bit of training with how I speak and how I, the things that I like to talk about. Yeah, that's ideal. So.
And that's where, so for people listening, I mean, that's where AI has, I believe, from a generative AI for sales, marketing teams, for businesses striving to grow. If you believe still that content is king, or maybe you never believed it, but if you believe that content is king, and the reason that content is king is because it's the way we communicate with people now, right? It's
personal content is king.
Right. Well, you got to start with content. If you believe that content is king, and then going deeper in that personal content is really where it needs to be, because we live in this one-to-one expectation. Buyers don't want generic stuff. They want stuff for me, right? To be the most efficient. So let's say it's a report. Let's say it's a competitive analysis. So here's the example I like. You've got an AI for the company. You got all your information in there. You have a prospective customer come along. Salesperson Brandon goes, okay, I'm going to go sell to ABC company, or I got a meeting with them. I need a competitive analysis report for ABC company. Right.
Yeah.
So number one, you build the infrastructure of that. Now Brandon doesn't, I don't have to go ask people. I don't have to take my time to go do it myself. I could actually go in and say, hey, AI, we've already pre-built the infrastructure of this. I need it for ABC company. And then if you need to go deeper, which you should, is then how do I use my existing model, all about Brandon, and say, now put it in my words, my focus, based on my career, based on my job role, based on everything about me.
Yeah.
And so now we've got, first thing was our competitive analysis strategy from the company. Then we got it focused on ABC company. And then we got it coming from me to ABC company, or even from me to these three people inside of ABC company. And all of that could be done in a matter of minutes.
Oh yeah. And I think that I want to get to Timothy. Just had a question about baseline, and I think that's super important. So I do want to hit that real quick. But um, okay, let's just the comments up. So let's just do it. Let's go live. How much baseline info do you need so that personalization really resonates? That has
Great
been like a
question. The
question we get
$1 million
internally.
question.
Um, it depends. So it baseline info is such a like it's a broad idea. For example, we're doing training on fine tuning a model based on your individual voice. If you have a lot of written content, like you have blog posts, you have articles, you have a book, all of those things, it's a very easy process because you just throw in your content, you're good to go. If you don't have that, like I don't have a lot of written content myself, it takes a little bit longer. But we've broken it down into singular questions. So what we started with was a chat. So we would say, "Hey, let's talk about your family. Let's talk about your hobbies. Let's talk about whatever." And so we would say, "Hey, tell me about your family." And somebody would say, "I'm married and I have 3 kids." And it's like we don't want to fine tune a model for you because the garbage is even going to be it's going to be even more garbagey than the baseline AI. But now we've broken it into 10 to 15 questions per topic. And now we're saying, okay, if you can answer at least half of these on these different topics, we feel that we have enough information to go on to fine tune a model for you. So we've kind of laid it and made it almost too easy not to do it and to answer these questions as long as you speak the way that you really speak. And the thing that I wanted to go in is setting up your company knowledge base. We started with the beta group, and we were saying, hey, upload this document, upload this document, upload this document. And I think we really screwed up there because a lot of people don't have that, and two, you can do a lot of that with AI already. So
Mm-hmm.
we are simplifying that process down to say, give us your URL for your company, and we'll start filling out that documentation for you. So your knowledge base is created based on giving us one URL. And if we can't get enough from that URL, we've got a GPT we're working on that you could use that in the meantime until that internet access is accessible in our platform. But
Mm-hmm.
sorry to kind of do my techie ramble. I don't know if
I
you
know
get
you got nerdy, but it was good though.
sorry. Tell me
Here's
where I got too nerdy.
no. It's good because we've got various types of people coming to the show. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to Timothy's question too about baseline. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the baseline, what is going to be good enough, is not the right way for us to look at it. I believe what we need to look at this is the long run. This is a long play, right? So if you train a model, if you will, or I go in and I start providing personal information to my private twin, private the key word, everybody, these are private.
Right.
You start training, giving information to your private twin, so you're answering these questions about your family, and you got to get into things about what do you think, what do you feel, why this is important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the big kickers with AI, that we got to start changing the way that we think. It's not what you did, it's that you got to go deeper to really get AI to understand who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is enough? Like, I think, what's the word you use? How much baseline info do you need so that personalization really resonates? Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, month one, it's not going to be as good as month two. And month two won't be as good as month three. If you keep speaking to it, your twin has got to be continually fed and updated. And so every month, and what my encouragement is at the beginning of training your twin, or building your twin, spend as much time as you're willing to and you can to really start
Mm-hmm.
getting some information in there if you want
Sure.
to see the benefits. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
at this as the quick button, the easy button, and that's why I think Bob's earlier point was everybody's looking at it very tactical. If you look at this as the easy button, I'm going to go buy this SaaS, I'm going to plug it in, and it's going to create comments for me. Well, you're going to
And
get
then
comments.
why is it bad?
Right.
Exactly.
You
Why is
can't
it crap?
complain then about why, well, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like AI. Well, you know why it sounds like AI? It
It is.
is AI, right? It is.
Yeah.
So don't
Right.
tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've got to change our mindset of this stuff. And I think coming out of the last decade of the SaaS revolution, the biggest problem with that, and frustrates the heck out of me, is it's like all these companies went to the same school of marketing messaging. And it was like, this is easy, this is quick, or it's going to do this, it's going to transform. You're going to bullshit, right? Nothing is that easy. You were selling fast and easy and the easy button to companies. And you hear the story over and over and over again. Then you start to implement, and everybody goes, well, this isn't easy. I mean, anybody out there with a Salesforce installation or any other CRM that you thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be easy.
Right.
And then you
Drop
get in
it.
there and you're like, nobody uses it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why not? Well, because the outputs aren't very good. Well, why aren't the outputs very good? Well, because we didn't take the time
To set it
to
up.
set it up the right way and feed it the right information and make the right decisions so it can serve us. So anything, but especially right now with AI, if we go into it looking for the easy out, it's going to not serve us well. But now is the time, and I forget who said it, about looking at it strategically. If you're going to look at it strategically, do it the right way. If you want a positive outcome, do it the right way. Because I think that's where the difference makes. Like you want to blow your competition away, take the time to do it the right way. Go slow to move fast. And
Right.
I believe even in these early years of AI, months, days of AI, you will leapfrog ahead with your output. And for us, with Fist Bump, it's more those outputs of again, we're generative AI. There's lots of other AIs, but for generative AI, you want everyone on your team to have very thoughtful, personal, quality social content that they're sharing in LinkedIn. Spend a little bit of time training your twin. Spend a little bit of time training. Well, we actually do it for companies, right? Training the company brain, the company twin, and you're going to get great content.
Right.
You want it for emails, you want it for social posts, you want it for video agenda, like all of those things. You start showing up. Like we know this about social, and this is one of the biggest challenges with social. When somebody starts using LinkedIn well, properly, consistently,
Mm-hmm.
they have great outcomes.
Sure.
But then you turn around to the rest of the team, the other 99 people on the team go, oh my gosh, you guys should do this, right? We had Greg Lemire on our other show a few weeks ago.
Right.
And he went from average sales rep to number one sales rep just by starting to use LinkedIn. And he's telling everybody like, oh my gosh, you guys should use this. You should use this. This is the way it's working.
Mm-hmm.
And people aren't doing it. Why?
It's too much
It's
work.
hard.
Yeah.
It's
I can.
hard and it's scary.
Yeah. I just can't get over the fact that you're trying to be Ricky Bobby and you literally said go slow. So we got to
Go
end this right
slow to
now.
move fast. That's funny. And Nora, I'd love if you wouldn't mind putting Timothy. Thanks, Timothy. I don't know if we know each other, but Timothy, wait, I got to invest time and effort to get value out of it. I know it sounds silly, but yeah, right. I mean, the mentality has been coming out of the last decade ish, has been that everything should just plug it in and work.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I want to touch on one more technical thing about training your model, fine tuning a model. We could do a whole show on fine tuning models, but so you give this information to fine tune a model to speak in your voice and with your stories, and it's very similar to what perhaps of like ChatGPT 3.5, 4. There's very distinct dates and time when that ended, when it's trained until. So we're giving you the ability to train a model. We're opening that up to you, but there is a point where you say, okay, I'm ready to train now, and then it's like you need to take a break because we're not going to let you train it every day because that would cost us a lot of money. So we're going to give you perhaps a month or something like that in order to say, okay, now you can train again on information you've given it. So it's very much a commitment of you to say, hey, I'm done for right now. But then you can continue to give it information, and that'll help with the prompting, but it won't help with the model because the model is very much a moment in time. So
yeah, and what that looks like for people is, once every 30 days or once a month, you get to press the button and say, okay, give it all this information
update
now.
again, yeah, right.
And then, as soon as you press the button, you can keep adding information, but it won't influence the model until you press the button again or you're able to
Yeah.
press the button.
No,
Excuse me.
and I think you've made this illustration recently. I really like it. We're wrapping up, guys. Here, I know we went a little over, but about AOL, I somewhat remember AOL. I remember the disc coming in the mail,
Yeah.
and them. You're going to go just really briefly into that before we wrap up?
Because I think it's a great way of for us anyway, and for people looking at it is I lived through AOL, and I got the disc in the mail and I stuck it in my Mac, but I had a Mac 2E or whatever it was, and I was on the internet,
Hmm.
but I actually wasn't. I was in AOL,
Hmm.
and AOL was bringing a bit of the internet to me.
Right.
And it was giving it to me in a very easy way so that honestly I wasn't hurting myself. I was, it brought email to me where I could have gone and created some sort of an email client on the internet, but I didn't have the skill.
Or
So it
Messenger.
brought
I was
email
talking
to
to my
me.
friends to that. Yeah, Messenger, AIM.
Yeah. And it brought chat and it brought rooms, right? There
Mhm.
was all these different chat rooms, which were basically forums that were already on the internet for several years, but
Mhm.
only, the people that knew how to log into the internet and all that type of stuff. And then eventually, Netscape came along and other things. But the reason I think that AOL analogy is so important right now is AOL simplified the internet for people.
Mhm.
I think right now what we need to do is look for ways to simplify AI so that common people, normal people, the non Daniels who loves this stuff and digs into it and figures out what a GPT is and how do I write my prompts. And I know there's a ton of people out there going, here's a prompt, here's a prompt, here's a prompt, use
Yeah.
your prompts. Well, there's a lot of us that I don't want to learn how to write prompts,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I was going to post about it. I think it's almost in some ways they're like they're parlor tricks more than they're like business solutions. Like, oh, look at
Yeah.
this cool trick.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a ton of value unless you can really turn it into more of a system. Otherwise, it's just like you're going to use it once and say how cool it was, and then you're going to move on with your life. You won't come back to it.
Right. Because it takes, I got to redo it. And I think that goes back to, I've talked about a lot in my content as well is 80% of your activity should be energy gaining
Hmm.
instead of energy draining. And for me to go figure out prompts, like I could go in and start playing around like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is interesting, but I'm going to get burned out because it's not the core of who I am. Like that
Yep.
doesn't overall excite me,
Hmm.
which means if I have to do that for AI, I'm going to use it for a little bit until the novelty wears out. I'm going to throw my hands in the air. I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. And I'm going to miss out on the power of AI.
Hmm. Yep. And so just to wrap up, I think like there's different ways you can handle AI. I mean, we talked about the just say it's too early, it's not the right time, stick your head in the sand, so to speak. There's the hire an AI expert to be part of your team, pay multiple six figures perhaps for somebody that's going to kind of revolutionize your system with AI. You could buy a company that could help you. A little plug here. Like we could help
Like a
you.
fist bump.
You could do it. You could hire a company to help you with the tools, bringing the expertise, and helping you implement it. And I guess, or you could try to cobble together some different AI tools and use it internally and figure it out as a team. I think with a smart technical team, smart team, you could probably do that. I mean, there's potential out there, but it would take
Mhm.
away from your running the business part. Not running
Yeah.
on, running, what is it, running your business versus running in your business, on your business. I can't remember the right
Mhm.
terminology there, but I think those
Yeah.
are kind of the main four. There's probably like offshoots from those four, but I think that's really where it falls for me right now when I look at the landscape. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to take that as an opportunity too to just say like, here's what we offer at Fist Bump, and I know we don't usually plug and pitch, but you know what? This is important. I think this is potential game changing for companies that it's important enough. Is like our Fist Bump AIQ, we do the work for you, so you don't even have to worry about it. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions. We're going to ask for some content and information. We're going to pull things out of you that you probably have in your brain, but you may not have it written down. But we are going to create what we call our AIQ. It's your AI IQ for the company. Your voice, your strategy, your market position, your competitive analysis, like everything awesome about you, we're going to train it. You're going to have
Mhm.
your AIQ that's all about the company. And then in a very easy AOL ish type model, individual users, non-techie, non-people that really don't want to be in there doing a bunch of stuff are going to be able to go in and just answer some questions. What I love about it for me is that the question, it says, hey, tell me about this. And I can push a button and I get to talk, because y'all can tell I like to talk. Yeah, I get to talk, and it's capturing my thoughts, my whys, my passions and everything. And then it goes in and it creates my Brandon bot. And I call mine Megan. It's after my wife, because my wife always tells me what to do and makes me better. And so now I
I
want
would have
my
just said the
bot.
second part, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I want my bot to tell me what to do to make me better, just like my awesome wife does. And so I think that's just a fun thing that Daniel created, that we get to
Yeah,
name our own bots.
yeah, that's fun.
But that's what we're doing for people, for companies, and then for individual users. And then we've got a bunch of outputs that we have standard in our library, and then we have custom outputs that we can create. So then Daniel and his team, they can go figure out the directives and the prompts and everything else, and your team doesn't have to. You just get to experience an efficient, very valuable output tool that then can be personalized for everybody on the team who needs to use it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I want to say thank you as well for you giving us that insight. It's always cool to hear, and I learned some new things about you, so I appreciate that, and appreciate the guests as well. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
No. Go ahead.
okay.
Sorry.
Yes, no, we're just wrapping up. We're already getting in trouble with Noor right now
I
because
know.
we're at 10 minutes past. I thought we were going to run short with just us and not a guest, but we're capable of talking to, I guess. But we thank you
Sorry,
all for
Nor.
coming and joining us. Thanks again for the comments. And we look forward to seeing you guys again next week. So have a good weekend, and see you next week on Winning Fist Bumps.
Boom, boom.
Boom.